All right, let's do this. Welcome, everyone, to the live show, the Unfound Live Show for June 1st of 2022. Got a great show for you tonight. Of course, this is the last Wednesday live show. I'm going to say that about 10 times over the next 2 hours. I'm sure some of you are going to forget anyway, but I'm going to say that about 10 times, of course, because I don't want you to miss it. But this is the last Wednesday live show. And the show is moving to Monday very quickly, June 6th. So you will not have to wait a week for the next live show. You only have to wait 5 days. But it'll be at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 in Central Time, 7 in Mountain Time, 6 p.m. in Pacific Time. And then all of you outside of the United States, you're just going to have to figure that out for yourselves. So I have a great agenda. Let me go through. Being with this change, we're going to try a few different things. I'm going to go through, usually don't do this, but this is going to start with the new live show. I am actually going to tell you everything that I'll be talking about tonight before we get to it. All right, so you kind of can be looking for these things as the next 120 minutes transpire. Of course, we're going to be talking a little disc golf. I have a very sad story to tell you all about, but I have something to say regarding it. But as far as actually true crime items for tonight, of course, going to be talking about the Daniel Villarreal poll. Going to be talking a little bit more about this live show and why it's moving. Going to talk to you about continuing progression with this TV show, this contract that I have with a company in the United Kingdom. Going to talk to you about a drink sponsorship. Going to talk to you about a wedding I'll be going to this weekend. Going to tell you about the newsletter which came out today, Unfound Now. And then in the more general world of true crime, I want to talk to you about the murder of Dan Markel because a trial is going on right now. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Johnny Depp and his win today. And then I'm also going to talk to you, talk a little bit about the Uvalde school shooting, should I get time. And then, of course, at the end, as I always do, be talking to you about this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Mary Watkins from Modesto, California in 1979. So I hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing fantastic. Very busy day for me, and that's one of the reasons that the live show is getting changed to Mondays. But where I want to start with this, of course, I want to remind all of you who are watching this or listening to this maybe a week later, give this video a thumbs up. This is going to end up being in all of your podcast platforms eventually. Come next Tuesday morning, this live show will not just be on YouTube, but no matter how you listen to Unfound with Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever, this live show will become an audio show as well. And so it will be important for all of you to give it a thumbs up or 5 stars or whatever in those locations once it becomes an audio show next week. But as you are watching tonight, please give your YouTube thumbs up. I think this show will earn it. You can subscribe to the channel right down here if you're not yet a subscriber. Maybe you're just finding this channel for the first time. Please subscribe. And if you're really feeling frisky, hit the join button down here, become a member, and get some special privileges being a part of this channel. I think you'll enjoy it for the low, low price of 10 cents a month. Not $10 a month. Or 10 cents, I should say, a day. That's funny, 10 cents a month. 10 cents a day, that's $3 a month. And then if you think there's anybody out there who would like this show in its video or audio form come next week, please share it. Send this link out to anybody you think it would enrich that person's life by watching and or listening to this show. So, hello, Karen and Valerie and Fishing. Yeah, everybody screaming, reminding everybody to give the thumbs up. Donna, you are very kind. I appreciate the kind words there. In the morning, yes, thank you, everyone. Sheree, thank you. She's saying I will forget. Sheree, I will remind you. Thank you, DLV. Yes, the newsletter. Everybody be looking for the newsletter. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Twinkle, I did see that. Yeah. All right. So let's get started in the show. So as I told you, I've already told you what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So as usually is the case, I have a lot to go through. And you know where I always start, kind of on the personal side. It always starts with the world of disc golf. And you just, where do I want to start with this? Some of you already know what I'm going to be talking about, but those who don't are going to be very, it's a very sad story. And it just happened right over here at my local course, which is called Taylor Lake. I think it's John Taylor Lake. It's a park, but it has a disc golf course in it. It's a very huge park, and the disc golf course is just a small part of it. And there is a lake there, and there are alligators in it. And the course is such is that water is in play, I'd say on 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 baskets, which is a lot fewer than if you were to go over to Cliff Stevens, where water is much more in play over there. But discs do go in the water at Taylor. I've lost quite a few in there myself. And there is a term within disc golf, and the name is squid. I don't know where it came from. But a squid is a term given to those people who go into the water to get discs. And this is a term that's not just used in Florida. I know disc golfers from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and elsewhere. That's what they call them in those areas too. I don't know why. I've been playing disc golf for 10 years. I don't know why that is the term. But, a lot of disc golfers don't want to go into the water to get their discs, even though they want their disc back. And so there are people who will go into discs after them. And my experience of living in Florida for over 10 years and playing disc golf is usually the people who do this. Let's just put it, they aren't usually, scientists and doctors and lawyers. They're usually people who, let's just say it, some of them are drug addicts. Some of them are down on their luck. Some of them, a lot of different reasons. But usually the people you see, if you're at a disc golf course and they're going into the water after discs, is because they don't have any other type of job. And that is, I don't know if that's true elsewhere, but it's certainly true in Florida, especially here in Pinellas County. And Pinellas County is St. Petersburg and Clearwater. Now, the problem, this probably is not as big a problem elsewhere in other states. Georgia, South Carolina, even Texas or Pennsylvania or Michigan or California. But it is a problem here in Florida because at least here in the mid-Florida and South, especially when you're getting near the Gulf or the Atlantic coast, we have alligators. They are a thing in Florida. They are real. And there's all sorts of videos that you can see all over the internet. They're on ball golf courses. They're on streets. They block traffic. Gators in Florida are like cows or deer in Pennsylvania. The problem is alligators are a lot more dangerous. And at Taylor, there are signs up to not go in the water. In fact, I just took a picture of one. The weird thing is that I was just at Taylor yesterday, and what I'm talking about, to get right to the point, is one of these people who goes in to get discs at Taylor got attacked by an alligator and died. He's dead. I know his name now. I did not know his name. I knew him by a nickname that everybody gave him. And I only had one interaction with him ever. My perception, being that this is my local course, is that he was a relatively new squid to Taylor. That is my perception. I could be wrong, but I could not remember. I don't remember seeing this guy at the park a year ago. And this is my local course. I've played more at Taylor than at any other course. But I will tell you, the one interaction that I had with him was not positive. Not maybe my fault, maybe his fault. This is not shading my judgment in any of this in any particular way. But he's dead now. And he was obviously a guy with problems. I did not know him personally, but I just know other people who knew him better. But people would give him money to go into the water to get discs. Why? Because they didn't want to do it themselves. Why? Because there's gators in the water. That's one of the main reasons. And on top of that, a lot of players like myself don't want to get wet, and the discs maybe just don't mean that. The discs just don't mean that much to me. And as I've always stated, if you cannot afford to lose discs playing disc golf, you probably shouldn't play. And I will tell you that one time, after moving here from Nevada to Florida in disc golf, I used to be one of those people who would give these people who did this a couple dollars if they would go into the water and get a disc, so I wouldn't have to get wet. That happened at Taylor, and the other course that there's this issue is over at Cliff. And Cliff, I would say, probably lose more discs than at Taylor, but still. And Cliff, at least probably until the past year, I don't know if there's any gators over there now, but there used to be gators in the waterways, this lake, I guess you want to call it, whatever you want to call it there, at the park there as well. And in fact, just 4 years ago, a guy got attacked in the water. He lived. He was in there for discs and got attacked. He lived. This guy yesterday did not. And I used to be one of those people who gave money to these people, a couple bucks to do that. And then my conscience started getting to me. And I started figuring out that it started to feel to me like I was taking advantage of these people. Because I knew the reason I wasn't going into the water, it's because of the gators. Well, you know what? These people are human too. Gators might eat them too, not just Ed Densel, but anybody who goes in there. On top of the fact is that there are laws that you're not supposed to be going in the water anyway. And there are lines. Don't do this. Don't swim in this water. It's dangerous. You'll get in trouble if you get caught in the water. And there has been an unspoken thing going on here in Pinellas County where, a lot of people just look past that. But I figured out that it felt to me like I was taking advantage of people in bad circumstances. Now, of course, these people are all human or all adults, and they're going to do whatever. You can't control them unless you're going to, handcuff them to, something in your basement. Okay. You can't do that. They're going to make their choices. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean I should condone it. Because these people were in desperate situations, they were desperate for money. they were willing to take risks, and too many people were willing to take advantage of them. Now, I know they were probably going to do it anyway, but for the rest of us, that doesn't mean we have to go along with it. And the fact is, this guy got killed by a gator because a lot of people were paying him to go into that water, where all these people who were paying this guy knew that the gators were in there and induced this guy to do it anyway. Probably would have done it anyway. Probably going in after these discs. But he knew there's too many people out there who were giving him a monetary incentive to do so. And it's safe to say, if everybody wouldn't have been giving this guy, or anybody who's still doing it, money, these people wouldn't be doing this. They would be doing something else. And, there's things going on. It's been like, 60 hours since this happened, over maybe, 48 hours. It happened sometime on Monday night into Tuesday morning that this happened. He was in the thing you also have to remember is this guy got kicked out of the park. He was not supposed to be in the park anyway, because the suspicion was that he was trying to break into a box where lost disc golf discs were being put. He actually got kicked out of the park, so he wasn't supposed to be in the park anyway. But I'm pretty sure he went in there at night. It's easy to do so. There's not a fence around the whole park. You can walk into that park at any time at 3 a.m. This is not like an amusement park or something. Just a regular city park. And he went into the water and he ended up getting attacked. He ended up, I think, getting attacked in a very well-known place where a lot of discs end up on this number 11, because the basket is usually close to the water and a lot of discs land in that area. So he knows that they're there. He goes in there. And I think that's where the alligator got him. But like I said, for me, it must have been 5 years ago or something. It didn't initially hit me when I moved here. And so it was probably 5 years of me giving money out just like everybody else. And then I started thinking, you know what? There's something about that this is wrong. Taking advantage of desperate people who are then going into risky circumstances, and I'm financing it. And I realized that there were people out there who knew about him, knew him better than I did, who wanted to help him out. And so they thought that they were like giving him a job. Well, he needed money. He needed a job. What better way? I lost my disc. He wants to go into the water after it. He needs money. It seems like a marriage made in heaven. He needs money. I need my disc. It's a equitable arrangement for both. It's not. It's not. Because he's desperate. He's down on his luck. I understand that this guy had some physical issues, medical issues. My guess maybe is he also might have some sort of drug addiction. I don't know that for a fact, but he had a lot of issues. And for those of us who don't have those issues, who don't struggle with those things in our lives, we shouldn't be giving money to people like that. If you really want to help somebody out like that, don't put them in a dangerous situation. If you really want to give money to that person, just give money to that person. Don't make it that, he has to go into shark-infested waters or gator-infested waters or piranha-infested waters to get your money. And if it's maybe something along the lines of, well, I don't want to just give him the money that might hurt his self-esteem. He doesn't want to take charity. Fine. Have him come over and mow your grass or paint your house or walk your dogs or something like that. Something a lot safer than the agreement being he goes into the water in alligator infested waters where there's signs everywhere and everybody knows it. These people who have given this money out can't claim, ignorance. The signs are everywhere. All the disc golfers know about the alligator attacks that have happened. And in fact, I found out there was one in 2020 at Taylor as well. I didn't even know about that one. But I did know about the one back in 2018 over at Cliff Stevens Park. You know, if all of these people really cared about this guy, they wouldn't have allowed him to go in the water in the first place. But now he's dead. It seems that, the best guess I can make is that he was in the water. As they wrote in the articles now that have been written about this attack, is that it's mating season. The alligators are even more aggressive than usual. And really, I've encountered gators on a disc golf course out of the water. Way over at USF, University of South Florida disc golf course. I was over there with my brother. My brother didn't even, this was years ago. My brother Brian didn't even see the gator just sitting right there on the bank, almost walked right into him. Usually gators are afraid of people. Usually. I've seen that. Come along, gator, he's lying on the bank, he sees you coming, goes off into the water. But at night, you're in the water. That's the gator's home, not yours. It's mating season, all of that put together. It all came together, 48 hours ago, not quite that long ago. And it's sad. I mean, my best guess is he was in there, probably didn't even know the gator was coming, and the gator killed him, ripped off one of his arms. And then on Tuesday morning, there was some jogger over there, or dog walker or something, saw his body floating right there by shore, called the cops. And so then what happens, the animal wranglers come in and they go and take care of the gators as if it's the gator's fault. The human going into the water in the gator's home is no different than the gator walking into somebody's house. Obviously, a gator comes into your house, you're going to have to kill it somehow. Well, you going into the gator, when you know the gator's there, you're in its habitat. It's afraid. It's in mating season or whatever else. It's going to do what gators do. It's got to stop. Got to stop. We got to stop financing. Like I said, it took me a while to figure this all out. Karen, he was 47 years old. This was not, you hear about once in a while here in the Tampa area about somebody fleeing the police and jumps into a canal and gets attacked by a gator. Probably a little bit different situation, but this guy was monetarily being induced to go in there, and now he's dead. Now, granted, he had done some other things. Like I said, he got kicked out of the park due to trying to break into that box. Like I said, I had a interaction with him was not that positive. He wanted to go get one of my discs. And I said, I really don't care to get it back. And he goes, well, don't give me, I do this. I said, I'm not having anything to do with it. You can you go in there. It's not my responsibility, man. I'm not taking part in that. I'm not touching that. Because I figured out, you know what? If I'm not willing to go into the water after my own disc, then what is really going on here with other people going into the water after my discs or anybody else's discs who don't want to go in the water? What is going on there? We have to stop doing this. If the discs go in the water, maybe we should just leave them there. I don't know what kind of natural disaster is eventually going to happen with all that plastic in the water. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that the Earth will be around for a very, 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 very long time, even with those discs in the water. Whereas we're not getting this guy back. And there have been people, responsible people, who have a lot more power within the disc golf community of Pinellas County, which is huge, who run clubs and everything else, who have tried to speak to players about that, tried to be, in leadership positions, who've tried to tell these other people who are giving this money out, you can't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. Somebody's going to get hurt. People aren't supposed to be going in the water. There's gators in the water. They're huge. They'll attack, and people still ignore it. And so some of the people who are now mourning his death are some of the people, they are the reason he was in the water in the first place. So it's sad. Like I said, I had one interaction with him, not that positive. I think he was ticked that I wasn't going to pay him to go into the water like everybody else did, but I have my reasons. And I ended up, that was just like, I don't know. I think that was before my dad was here. So that must have been sometime in April, middle of April or something like that. But I just told him, I just don't care. If I throw a disc in the water, that's my fault. That's not his fault. Don't, how much is a disc worth to you? A person's life. Now, maybe if this was a different situation, maybe if this was a lake with no killer animals in it, maybe then it would be a little different. But everybody knows who plays in Pinellas County, you go into a body of water here that is fresh water, not the Gulf, everything, but fresh water inland, you might be asking for trouble. So I hope that there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with their consciences. Is that how you say it? Each person has to deal with his or her conscience in the right way. I realize there's people who are going to say, well, he was going to go into there whether I paid or not. Well, you can't be a part of that. I realize he's an adult. He's going to make his own decisions. But you can't be a part of those bad decisions. You can't benefit from those bad decisions. And you certainly can't continue to spur it on by giving someone money who then continues to make more bad decisions. And now he's dead. And like I said, until I think later yesterday, I don't even think I even knew his real name. Just once again, I just ran into it once. And like I said, it seems my perception is that he was from this area, but it was just kind of with him in maybe the last year that he started doing that over there. And, we really didn't have somebody like that over there. Why? Because of the gators. And my perception is when discs were getting out of the water, it was because somebody was actually in a boat doing it. I have to admit that in all the tournaments that I've ever played there and everything else, I've really only seen one person really, 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 really go into the water there until this guy came along. So that's my story. It became a national story. It was even the New York Post. It was in the Las Vegas Sun. And that is my home course. If you Google it, Taylor Park disc golf death. That's my local park. It's a beautiful park. The city does a nice job, or is it the county? City, taking care of it. The club of which I am a part of, that club, does an excellent job. My very good friend Kevin, who runs the club, who feels, I think feels like I do on this particular topic. He runs the club, has been doing it. He and his girlfriend Alicia do a spectacular job. Really, really well-known disc golf course, club. They do great things. I was just there yesterday for doubles and everything else. This is really, tarnishes its reputation. To think that people in this area would be inducing somebody who's down on his luck to be doing this. So, and I look at it, being that I'm in the disappearance business, it's a little bit of the same thing. Certainly all these people that we talk, most of them are adults. They make their own choices, but I think that we can also, pick out a lot of disappearances that we've covered on Unfound where people were enabling them. People were looking past things. And you know what? Probably these people ended up dead too, not by an alligator, but maybe by another human or by an overdose or something like that, because they were enabled. They're adults. They're going to make their own decisions. They have their own minds. They can't be controlled. You're not going to handcuff them to a furnace in the basement. But, too many, more than we'd like, certainly were being enabled before they went missing. So, oh, baby. Sad. Very sad. So I wanted to talk about that. I have this platform. I talk about disc golf on this live show every week, usually in very positive terms. And of course, my yips, me getting over the yips, going to see a sports psychologist, winning some tournaments, all these, maybe some negative and positive things. And then this come along. And so I can't just ignore it and be like the elephant in the room. But this has to stop. Not just at Taylor, but in any of these places where going into the water is dangerous, whether it's because of an animal or because of the depth or because if it's a river, there's a current or something like that, has to stop. All these disc golfers are just going to have to live with the fact they're not getting their discs back. So guess what? Either don't throw it in the water or don't play. So DLV says, gators were just lying off all the golf course I went to on Kauai Island off of South Carolina. It seemed tamed and lazy, just lying around sunning themselves. Golf was walking right by. I was freaked out. Well, DLV, just imagine, one of those golfers going into the water after a ball, knowing that there's gators in the area. Not smart. And then on top of it, the golfers don't want to go into it, but they'll go find somebody who's desperate enough, who needs the money, that will go in and get that golf ball for them. Moving on. So other than that, things are pretty standard here. I've now that so I just wanted all of you to know about that. And I told one particular person in particular that I'd be talking about this tonight, and I'm going to be editing this part of the video and sending it to him. And I'm probably going to post that disc golf part of the video on my personal page on Facebook. Anyway, my own personal life, I'm getting out a little bit more, doing more work outside of this condo, and I've been finding some really nice late night cafes. I'm such a Starbucks person, but I'm finding more independent, personal, small business places that stay open till midnight, 1 a.m, 2 a.m. That's more my style. And it's been really good. And a couple of them are not a long drive from my place, maybe 10 minutes or something. And so it's been good. Now that COVID is past, at least here in Florida, everything's opened up. Business are staying out, open late and everything. It's good to get out among the masses again and do some work like I used to do on Unfound before COVID came along. It's just that maybe I'm going to be giving more of my business to non-Starbucks places than to Starbucks places. Sweet Gator Babe, how convenient, says, I feel the same way about people donating to someone chasing a tornado. Sweet Gator, that's, I realize that's all in the effort of science. I think that, we certainly learned a lot from those people who have taken those risks. That's their jobs, I guess. They're scientists. They're saving people's lives, learning how tornadoes are formed, learning how to predict them, where they're going to hit and everything. They're actually saving lives. This guy was just getting disc golf discs. but I see what you're saying. And please remember to hit the thumbs up button as you are watching tonight. Memorial Day. I'm guessing many of you remembered. Of course, it's a day for remembrance of all the people who died for this country, not necessarily military vets, but they, of course, were in the military and died. And it was a working day for me. I actually did 2 interviews on Memorial Day, one of which you will hear this Friday, and then the other one you will hear next Friday. That's just the way it worked out. I didn't plan that, but that's the way it worked out. I think that's the first time in Unfound's history where I did 2 interviews in the same day for 2 totally separate disappearances. So that's what I did on my Memorial Day. It was a beautiful day. And then finally, for the personal stuff, has anybody gone to see Top Gun Maverick yet? I haven't. Too busy. I want to see it. It'll be the first time I go to the theater in a long time, but I want to see it. I'm a huge fan of the first movie. But if you've seen it, maybe you want to give a thumbs up. You maybe want to give us a little review in the chat as we continue tonight. So let's move on to the found items for tonight's show. And of course, I always start with the poll that I post in the discussion group on Facebook. And the poll was for the disappearance of Daniel Villarreal. I thought his disappearance kind of, the poll question kind of writes itself. Do you believe that Daniel was driving the car that day or not when those hit and runs occurred? And in the discussion group on Facebook, a majority, I wouldn't say a large majority, but a majority of the respondents said, nope, Daniel was not the driver, meaning somebody else was driving, meaning also that Jessica lied to police when she was asked who was driving. Although there were answers that Daniel was driving in this poll as well. Now, in the think tank at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, if you don't know what the think tank is, that is a very special, very private, very exclusive group of Patreon members. We get together on Sunday evenings to discuss the disappearance for that week. We get into the details. I always bring an agenda called the Points to Ponder. And I think you'd really enjoy it. I know that the people who are in there continue to be members of the think tank. And if that sounds like something, if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, if you have Sunday evenings that are free, if you find yourself just kind of twiddling your thumbs on Sunday evenings, maybe we have a new place you should be. And that's the Unfound Think Tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Well, in the think tank, as is usually the situation, the think tank for the most part went in the opposite direction. The think tank determined that Daniel was the driver that day and was responsible for those hit and runs. And yes, he did run away from the wrecks, and he was the one with the backpack who threw it in the trash and then jumped over the wall into the wash, never to be seen again. For me, I write a blog at patreon.com for the low, low price of $2 a month. You can read it. And I said, yep, Daniel was the driver. I try to make it a point of writing at least 3,000 words regarding this, regarding whatever disappearances we are covering that week. And I think this was like 3,400 words. I did pretty well. And in there, I decided that Daniel was not the driver. There's no reason. How can I put it? There's no, believing that Daniel wasn't the driver does not defy any laws of physics or anything. It's certainly possible. It was just that, as usually is the situation with me, when I start thinking about that, then the disappearance gets to be so complicated so quickly. Well, this person had to do this, and this person had to say that, and this person, and that person, and this person, and that person, and just too complicated. And I also thought that Jessica's behavior right after the wreck, when the police showed up and she gave his first name, but is not his full name, I thought was perfectly consistent with a girlfriend who was trying to protect her boyfriend. So that is the conclusion that I came to. The good thing is nobody is right. Nobody is wrong. The only reason I write the blog is to show everybody my particular reasoning when I look at, any particular disappearance, whether it is something that is obviously foul play or something that's not obviously foul play or not at all. There's no reason to believe there's foul play. All I'm doing with the blog is showing my reasoning, because of course we can collect facts, but then how do you put those facts together? And maybe some of those facts are not even relevant to the disappearance at all. So if you'd like to read what I have to say about these disappearances, once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And that is also the link if you want to get into the think tank. It's a little more expensive to be in the think tank, though. So that is the Daniel Villarreal poll. I will continue to correspond with his mother, Connie. And it's a relatively new disappearance, of course. And one of the listeners who is in here, I saw her in the chat room tonight. She's from that area. She's always very interested in disappearances in Arizona, in particular the Phoenix area. So she's taking a deep interest in Daniel's disappearance as well. In fact, she's in the think tank and was stating how she used to work very close to there she is. You know who you are. Moving on, the live show. What I'm doing right now, I'm going to say it again. This live show is moving to Mondays. In fact, I'm not even going to take a week off. We're just going to go right to Monday on June 6th, 2022. It will start at 9 p.m. Eastern. And so you can tune in just like no other changes. It's going to be on YouTube. I will post the link as I always do. I will remind everybody, I will be, of course, out there asking for questions to answer during the live show on Monday nights. Nothing is going to change except the day. The time isn't even changing. The format, though, may change a little bit in that, like I did tonight, I'm going to announce the topics at the beginning instead of maybe making them a little bit of a mystery. Other than that, not much of a change. All right. However, the reason I've done this, and I had it in the newsletter. I'm going to talk about the newsletter. The newsletter, of course, came out today. It's June 1st. It's the beginning of the month. But I wanted to switch things up. This makes it possible that I can now put this live show as a podcast. So you will be getting this live show in your podcast feed on Tuesday mornings. The same feed that you get if you're a subscriber on Spotify, iTunes, wherever else. You can get that little ding around 2 o'clock every Friday. Hey, a new episode of Unfound has now been uploaded. Well, that's now going to happen on Tuesday mornings too, because I have the ability with YouTube, after this show is over, a file is created. I can download that file. It's a video file. What is it? MP4, MOV or something. And I can actually split the audio from the video. And so the audio will become a podcast. And I will upload it. And if you'd like, you don't have to be then watching or anything else to, if you want to re-listen to it, you could just listen to it right on your phone. You don't have to be looking at the screen. You don't have to have the YouTube app open. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. It's just to be an audio show for you. Maybe you want to watch it and then listen to it. As you know, there's a lot of people who have never tuned into the live show. Well, they're going to be getting the live show in their feed now. And we'll see how that goes. This is also going to help me because more and more, the live show was getting a little bit in the way of the workflow toward the Friday episodes. It felt like, working on an episode, and then all of a sudden I have to put everything aside to put this agenda together for the live show and then do this on Wednesday nights. And, it got, I wouldn't say stressful, but it got to the point where I was kind of rushing to get the episode done before the live show even happened on Wednesday nights. And that can be a little tough. So now this is moving back to Mondays. And so then I'll have the rest of the week to work on the Friday episode and do anything else that I might have to do regarding that episode. I think the workflow will help me just a little bit more. I will also say that, hello, Betty. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I would also say that for 2022, I wanted to really look at how I'm spending my time. Am I spending my time in the best way possible? And if it is something that absolutely has to be done, like this live show, is that particular thing being maximized? And the answer for the live show increasingly became no. I love it. I love interacting with all of you. I love putting the agenda together. I love talking about things, little personal things and things outside of the Unfound world, other true crime news and things. But for the overall picture of Unfound, I thought was hurting the aerodynamics of it a little bit, slowing everything down a little bit. For example, as you would probably guess, Unfound makes money off of YouTube, of the ads that run during a lot of these videos. And I've always, of course, very thankful. Many of you have contributed through the super chat button, which you can see through the gray square with the $sign in it. Many of you have contributed over the past 4 years to that. Deeply, deeply appreciated. All of you are very generous. Thank you. The truth, though, is that the money that we make off of the YouTube channel is mainly from the ads that played during the videos. And so, I thought about that, and this is all, this is all part of the consideration of what are we doing here. Sweet Gator's asking, have you considered doing 2 Unfound episodes in place of live? I could never do that. It's just not possible. It's just, Sweet Gator, I'm just going to be honest with you. Putting together one episode with, lining up the interview, editing it, lining the thing up, lining an interview up, lining any conversations up, doing my research. There's no way that could ever happen. No way I could ever do that, ever. To do 2 Unfound episodes a week. Never. It's, the main, one of the big issues is finding people to talk to. That's one of the big issues, because once you commit to 2 episodes a week, you commit to 2 interviews a week. And, I have to admit, sometimes I do worry, maybe, when is the next interview going to happen? In fact, I was just feeling like that a week ago. Then all of a sudden, 2 interviews happen on one day. That's sometimes the way it works. So I could never do that. It's just not possible. That is, though, why I can do this live show. Why? Because I write it myself. I'm not waiting to fit into somebody's schedule. I don't have to do any editing of it or anything else. I type it out and I'm ready to go at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays and now Monday nights. And that's the way, and let's admit it, that's the way most podcasts are done. Most podcasts don't have interviews. It's just a person or a couple people in any genre just talking about whatever, talking about music, talking about video games, talking about murders. And so they have much more flexibility, maybe to do 2 episodes a week. I don't have that. I am at the mercy of people who actually want to appear on Unfound. And that's why probably, one of the biggest jobs at Unfound is finding people to talk to. It's a lot easier than it was at the beginning, but I would say that it still can be rough. You send out a lot of emails and you never hear anything back. It's not unusual for myself, for anybody, myself or anybody else who's trying to find guests for the program, to email 20 people, 20 different families and hear nothing back. That is not unusual. So 2 Unfound episodes a week, just not possible. But I want to make the live show part of the rotation because I believe this is a quality show. I know there's a lot of people out there going to enjoy it. And like I said, I just think I've been underusing it a little bit to this point. Screaming says Ed would need to create a mini me to help him. Well, I have assistants and everything, but ultimately, Screaming, I'm the person who has to do the work, interview outlines. I'm the person that has to do the interviews. I'm the person who has to edit all and make sure it's all good. So, yeah. Screaming, you're very generous. Thank you very much with the super chat contribution. Thank you so much. Moving on to more Unfound news. So once again, next Monday, and Sheree, I'm going to remind you on Sunday and Monday to not forget about Monday night. And so you'll be seeing me again on Monday, and I'll figure out what the agenda is going to be then. Moving on, the UK production company, we're going to be having another talk next week. This guy's name is Markel, and he emailed me yesterday asking if we could have another talk next week. I said yes. And it seems like things are moving in a very positive direction regarding this production. A series, maybe more than one episode, maybe 5 or something, detailing the murder of Janelle Matthews and the trial of Steve Pankey and everything that has gone on since 1984. This company contacted me back in late January. It was when I was up staying with my dad, late January until the end of February. I have signed a contract, an exclusivity contract with them regarding this specific topic of Janelle Matthews' murder. And he and I have had maybe, 3 video chats and 1 phone call over the last, how long it's been? 4 months, 3 months, 4 months. And he contacted me yesterday and wants to talk again next week. It sounds like it's going in a very positive direction. What does that mean for me? What role am I going to play? I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, the reason this company, and then there was another company that contacted me within the last couple of weeks, and I had to turn them down because of this exclusivity contract that I have. Just one of those things. I got to interview Steve Pankey and do an interview with him for 3.5 hours, and nobody else did. That's just the way it worked out. Who knew? So, in all this, consultant will appear on camera. Are they going to be coming to the United States to go to Greeley, Colorado? I would think so. Now, of course, the dream would be for, me to have to go to England to do something. Now, that would be spectacular. Even though I'm not a big traveler, I don't think I could pass that up. So, but things seem to be going in a positive direction. I've told you many times, TV, very, very, very difficult. Despite there being Netflix and Disney and Paramount Plus and Hulu and Amazon and everything else, it's still very tough to get anything done and seen by anybody. I think this company may just be successful at this. I certainly like the trailer they'd put together that they were using as a marketing tool. So, if I can talk about it more after I talk to this guy next week, I'll let you know. But as you know, I haven't really, said his full name. I haven't mentioned the production company or anything like that. That's still kind of, I don't know if it's really appropriate to talk about that right this second yet. So there you go. Screaming, you're very generous. Sharon, you are very generous. You love the live show too. Thank you very much. Shree says Unfound does quality research and not just reporting on Wikipedia or news articles. Yeah. And in fact, I was just, Shree, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just reading something about somebody complaining about how a lot of these true crime shows are just Wikipedia articles. I was just reading that yesterday or today. Of course, that's not what we do here. Everything is original material. That's why I have the people on the program, the people who know the most about the disappearances, usually the people who have been most affected by the disappearance, and they get to tell you their own story. I decided way, 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 way back then we're going to do original material here. We're not ripping off anybody. Okay. Even when it comes to the summary of the case, I still give my friend Megan's website a credit, even though for the most part, now I write those summaries all by myself. I don't even go to her page to kind of, pick, things out, even though I've already done the interview and everything else, really try to condense it because she does a great job really putting things condensed. I don't even go there anymore to write about it. So, but I still give her credit because I think she does great work. But we do original material here. Always will. Always will. Thank you. Did they pay you for the exclusivity? Karen, no. No money is exchanged hands right now, but obviously if we get to a production thing, there will have to be some money exchanged hands, or I mean, exactly then what am I doing? Sweet Gator, you're very welcome. Thanks for all of these super chat people tonight. Thank you very much. These orangish yellow and then bluish green or light green, I guess, and then blue, orangish yellow again. Thank you. Great colors. Thank you. Moving on, a few weeks ago, I was approached by a drink company. I can't mention it yet because, I've not signed anything with them. I don't want to start giving them a shout out before they're paying for it. But I was approached a couple weeks ago by a drink company, and they want to advertise on Unfound. So this would be something outside of what is already happening with Spotify. And I, talked to Cherie about it. In fact, I think I even might have forwarded at least one email to Cherie so she could read it. And the company sent me a sample, like 15 little containers like this for me to try it like one a day. And I actually videoed myself drinking the first one. I'm sitting out on my balcony. I have the camera set up. I'm talking to the camera. I open it up. I chug it. And then I give my opinion on it. This is something that I want to do for like posterity's sake. The video is not available publicly yet, but when myself and this company actually get together for a deal, I will then make it public. I have sent them the video. They didn't ask me to do this. I did this all on my own. I have sent this video to them so they could see my natural reaction to it. Now, you should know that I told them up front, if I think this thing sucks, I'm not doing it. I won't say that it sucks. I won't go on the air and say that it sucks, but it just, as all of you know, very much everything that goes on Unfound is all about trust. You have to trust that I'm telling you the truth. You have to trust that the guests are being very forthcoming. This genre, maybe if, like I said, if this was music or talking about video games and things like that, maybe you could be a little more sensational and get in the hype business a little bit more. You can't do that with what we do here. It's too serious. Disappearances are too serious. And so I realized that everything that I do is based on trust. And so if I'm going to talk well of something, it has to be because I think it's good. I think it's worthwhile. It's just not because, somebody wants me to pay to say something. I would never do that. But I liked it. And I have to admit, I was surprised I liked it. Because I do have a very stingy palate. There's a lot of foods I don't eat. There's a lot of foods I can't eat. There are a lot of things I don't drink. There's a lot of things I can't drink for all sorts of different reasons. But this is pretty good. I was stunned. Eventually you'll see the video of me drinking it. And I've been drinking one a day when I get up in the morning, and it's fantastic. So I'm hoping within the next few days we can get this all handled. And they're allowing me to write my own copy. It has to be so long, so many seconds, and it has to say certain things, but I get to write it, which I love. and that has to be prominently placed in the episode. We do 2-hour episodes, 2.5-hour episodes. There's a lot of space in there, as you now see, even with ads in the episode since the beginning of March. It's like they're not even there because there's not that many of them, and the episodes are so long anyway. So, pretty sure they're going to be an advertiser on the show for at least a month. I'm hoping that we can get something going for a longer term than that. But just out of nowhere, I tell you, these days, I just never know what's going to end up in my email. You just when I wake up, you just never know. Betty, you're very kind. Thank you. Trust, honesty, integrity. Thank you so much. You're very kind, Betty. Thanks. So that's the drink sponsorship. And when I can actually reveal what the company is, I will tell you about it. I have to admit that I'd not heard of this company before, but weirdly, I think that I've seen it before. It wasn't, when I saw it, it didn't really, put off anything in my memory. But once they sent me the samples, I was like, oh, yeah. So you never know. Moving on. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, and it's really rare. I have to admit that in my life, I've avoided weddings. Not a big wedding guy. I'm not married. Maybe that shouldn't be a surprise. But I got invited to go to Kelly Bruce's wedding this weekend in Georgia, and I just could not pass that up. I canceled being in a disc golf tournament to go to her wedding. Man, times they are changing. So I'm going to be making the long drive up into Georgia. I think it's like a 7.5-hour drive to where she's getting married there. I think the wedding is at 5:00. And then I will probably just come home the same night. So I'll probably get home at like 5 a.m. on Sunday or something. We'll see. You know me, I don't mind driving. But she invited me. It was such a surprise. And I said, well, I got to go. It's not that she was a guest last year for the Brian Schaefer episode, but I've kind of known her since like 2017 when we first started talking about Brian's disappearance very early on in Unfound's existence. She's really trusted me with a lot of talking to me behind the scenes. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Talks to me about, frankly, about being exasperated by all the trolls out there and all the kooks regarding Brian's disappearance, etc. So we've had a lot of good conversations, and so I had to go. Now, I'll admit, if she was getting married in California, probably wouldn't be able to go, or Pennsylvania, or but being 7 and some hour minute drive is not. I said I can do that, so I'm going to be there. I look forward to it. Going by myself. I'm going as a single. And so I guess I'll get to meet her for the first time, but it's her big day. I'm sure this is a pretty big wedding, and I don't know how many minutes or seconds I'll even get to spend talking to her, but it'll be good to be there. Just to think that just doing Unfound, has earned that place in somebody's life to be invited to the person's wedding is very special. So moving on, the newsletter came out today, some of which I'm talking about here is in it. If you are on the newsletter list, you should have received it, I don't know, about 5 hours ago or something like that, longer than that ago. Very lucky, very happy to get it done. This end of the month, going into the next month, and have to do the live show outline, and then this, and get Friday's episode prepared and everything. A lot of stuff going on. I felt pretty good that I got the newsletter done. I got it out before tonight. So please check that out. If you are not yet on the email list, please email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I will get you on the list. You like it? I think you're going to like it. Talk a lot about this live show, even more further in depth about the changes and some things. So I think you're going to, check that out. I think you should check that out. As Screaming is saying, please give this live show a thumbs up, whether you're watching it live right now or you're watching it tomorrow or the next day. That helps us with the YouTube algorithms. And then the final thing regarding any Unfound stuff that I wanted to talk about is that the next Unfound Now is done. And it is now viewable for members of this channel. If you want to know how to become a member, just hit the join button right down here. You will find that out. And one of the perks that members get is they get their the Unfound Now video a week early. So it has been out since Saturday or Sunday. And if you're not a member, you'll just have to wait till Sunday. Now, what are some of the other things you get by being a member on this channel? You get the episodes a day early, and you also get a daily update from me. I do a little video, maybe 3 to 4 to 5 minutes long, just going through what is going on Unfound that day. What work did I do? Did I do an interview? Did I have some talks? Anything going on behind the scenes? I do that a daily video. I've not yet done it for today. I'm going to do it after this live show is over. And I try to pick out different places in my condo to do it. Sometimes I'm out there on the balcony at night and it's kind of very creepy looking, or I'm sitting on the couch. It just depends. So please consider becoming a member of this channel for the low price of 10 cents a day. And once again, give this video a thumbs up. I see how many people are watching right now, but the thumbs up are kind of lagging behind. So let's try to even that up. All right, moving on. Some general true crime news. Yeah, and if you're also wondering about the membership, everybody, if you're in the chat and you're seeing all these people screaming, Twinkle, Kathy, Jill, who else is in here with the green? Maybe that's about it for members tonight. Everything. Hello, everything. How are you? Crimson. Hello, everyone. Good to see you, Crimson. If all of you are seeing these people with these green names with little gold badges beside them, those are members. So all of you in gray should consider it. $3 a month. That's it. I think it's worth it. And of course, the reason Shri is in blue is because she's the moderator. If this was like a radio show, she would be the producer. If there's any call-ins to the program, she would be the one who is answering the phone. If somebody wants to get on the air, that's Shri's job. And this Shri is there, is putting all of the different emojis that you get as members as well. You got the Unfound magnifying glass. We got a sunset from my balcony. Got a disc golf picture, and you got a heavy metal sign as one of the emojis too. That is also something else you get by being a member there. Maybe I should think about adding some more emojis there, Shri. All right, going to the more the general true crime news. I want to talk about this Dan Markel trial. He was a college professor who was murdered in Tallahassee in 2014, on July 18th, 2014. Of course, 2 years before Unfound came to be. I will tell you, at the time, I was obsessed with this murder. Obsessed with it. Why? Because, very unusual circumstances. He had come home from dropping his kids off at school or something. He pulled into his garage, and before he could even get the garage closed, like with the button or whatever, somebody came into his garage and shot him through the driver's side window glass. He didn't die right at the time. He ended up dying the next day. So it seemed like somebody was actually waiting for him at home, as if they knew he was coming home right at that time. Nobody broke into the house. There was nothing stolen. Just this shooting. Somebody came into a garage. He pulls in. I believe he was on his phone at the time, if you can believe it. And he said something like, hey, there's somebody in my driveway. So somebody was there. He pulls into his garage. Garage door opens. He pulls in. He's still on his phone. Somebody comes up like right here, shoots him. And I was obsessed with this. And they had a video of a Toyota Prius speeding away from the scene. They had a picture of this Prius like in downtown Tallahassee after it happened. It had some unique markings on it and everything. And eventually, they did catch who did it. And the one guy is already in jail. And the trial for the kind of one of what we might call one of the instigators is happening right now. Well, Dan Markel was divorced. And he was a law professor, and I believe she had a law degree too. She might have just been a lawyer. I don't know if she was a professor, but they were married. They got divorced. They had 2 children. She lived up there. He lived up there. Well, as it turned out, because they were divorced, she wanted to move back to South Florida with the kids, and Dan would not let her because that was not part of their divorce agreement. And then he ends up dead. And right after that, not long after that, she took her kids. And what'd she do? She moved back to South Florida. And I can remember at the time, before anybody was charged with anything, that there was a lot of suspicion regarding this for obvious reasons. Well, they eventually did catch the 2 guys who were in the Prius that day. And it was a murder for hire. The problem is that to this point, here we are almost 8 years later. I can't believe it. There's no proof that his ex-wife knew that any of this was going on. However, they have certainly proven, well, this is the trial for her brother is going on right now as one of the, it started with him. Of course, some people believe the ex-wife might have known what was going to happen before it happened. Not saying that she initiated it, not saying she wanted it to happen, but she might have known that people in her family were cooking something up to make it easier for her to move back to South Florida, to the Miami area. And so the way it went is that her brother had a girlfriend who then enlisted 2 other men, one of whom I think was her ex-boyfriend, to go up and kill Dan. So Wendy Adelson is her name, the ex-wife, could move with the children back to South Florida. The ex-wife has not been charged with anything. I don't know if she is going to be charged with anything, but this brother's girlfriend, she has been successfully prosecuted. She's going to jail for a long time. One of the other shooters took a deal for leniency. He's going to jail. But this other trial is now happening right now. And it, like I said, I followed this very, very seriously back at the time. And in fact, I think that if you were to go to the, there is certainly a Dan Markel page on Web Sleuth. You might even see a lot of my entries in there talking with other people at the time about this murder back when it happened in the summer of 2014. Once again, well before I ever thought I'd be doing a true crime podcast. It was just, how things happen in life. I mean, I was only, when that happened, I was only 43. Crazy. But it was something that I followed and it got out very quickly. Well, what was this Prius? They figured out that the Prius had been rented. Somehow they figured that out. And it had some weird markings. There was something missing on the front bumper, and it made them believe this wasn't a regular owned car. It was like a rental car. Somebody had gotten it and then driven it up there. And they discovered by using video cameras that this car had actually been following Dan around that day, and he didn't even know it. Of course, this was a lot of things that didn't come out until after these people were caught, or identified, I should say. So you just, there aren't too many college professors getting murdered out there, and not too many murders in which it seems like the person is waiting at the house and, guys on his phone saying, oh, he's pulling in. He's saying, hey, somebody's here in my driveway. Little did Dan know that those were the murderers waiting for him. And they shot him. They took off in this Prius, and there was a house down the street that had a video camera. It's speeding by. It took some time. I forget how long it took. This is not something, they did not catch these guys quickly. In fact, it might have been a couple years. It might have even been not until after Unfound started that anybody was even charged with anything. It took a while for some reason to put this all together. The big question is, are they going to try to show that Wendy Adelson knew about this before the fact, or did she even maybe at the very least know about it after the fact? I mean, she wants to move, back to South Florida, and all of a sudden her, and her ex-husband's getting in the way of it, and then he's murdered. If she didn't suspect that somebody had done something for her, she must have thought that she's like living this term life. I'm not saying she wanted him dead, and I don't mean to be morbid like that, but she had to be thinking, wow, that was like perfect. I didn't want Dan to die, but I wanted to move back to that South Florida, and now I guess I get to do it with my kids. So we'll see. So if you've not heard of that crime before, the murder of Dan Markel, his last name's Markel. Given that he was a law professor, there's been a lot written about his murder on a lot of law blogs, which usually they don't do true crime, but they will if one of their own has been murdered, something like that. So if you want to check that out, Dan Markel, the murder of Dan Markel happened in Tallahassee on July 18th, 2014. And I can even remember throwing around different scenarios. And one of them was that really, really going into the deep trenches of my mind now, but not long after Dan was murdered, there was some kind of shooting or something on the Florida State campus, which is where, that's where, it's in Tallahassee. And I have to admit, at one time I started thinking, and it was some Florida State student who did it, and I started thinking, is it possible that this kid who did this shooting in Tallahassee, the Florida State University, could have also been the guy who shot Dan Markel? That, of course, did not end up being the situation. But I can even remember tossing around that idea, at the time. Did he and Dan ever run in, and did he fail one of Dan's classes or something, and he was bitter about it? I can remember throwing that idea around. I really don't know if I ever really did dismiss it until, it was still on my mind at the point that her family was, her brother and other people were charged. I don't remember, but that was an alternate theory I remember considering back at the time. Cherie remembers following. It's very sad. Wendy's husband gets killed, and turns out her brother is responsible. It was fascinating because of how law enforcement tracked it way back then. That's true. Cherie says, Wendy's interrogation seemed very believable to me at the time, and all these years later, I still don't believe she knew at the time. Okay, Cherie. Hello, Charlotte. Good to see you. There's another member with her green name. I've always believed that Wendy was involved in the killing of Dan. Okay, Charlotte, thank you. So if you've not heard of that before, the murder of Dan Markel. Let's move on. I know many of you were following the Johnny Depp trial, the defamation trial, against his wife, Amber Heard. He took her to court because he claims that she defamed him. And in response, she countersued him, and it all went to court. And this has been going on. I followed it just a little bit. Really, it's been Cherie who's texted me a few things, but I was tuned in for the verdict today. And unless maybe you were under a rock today, Johnny Depp ended up winning. Now, he lost on 1 point. But it's like, let's just put it this way. Amber lost a lot more than he did. And, he's going to owe her a little bit of money. She's going to owe him a lot of money. And I think that all ends up is that Amber Heard is going to owe him, what is it, Sheree? $13 million, $18 million. And it's obviously the jury thought that Johnny Depp had been defamed. Now, what I find interesting about this, like I said, 15 million. Thank you, Screaming. What I find interesting about this is, there seems to be 2 points of view here. As I've been reading about this just today in preparation to talk about it. If you go to some, and being that I was talking about Dan Markel, I've been to a couple law sites today, law blogs, seeing what they're saying about his trial. But being there, some of them are also writing about what's been going on in the Johnny Depp trial. And then after it came out, just some really quick reactions. I was watching Court TV today, and it's really interesting. It seems that the more people are in the law profession or in the legal profession or something like that, the more that they are convinced that the jury got it wrong, that what Amber did not meet to the level of being defamed. Once again, this is the law profession talking, almost without error. Whereas in the public, all these people who don't have law degrees or anything like that, my perception is most people who actually watch the trial, who aren't in the law business, but teachers, engineers, whoever else, they thought that Johnny Depp did get defamed and that he should have won. And in my perception is that there were way more people on Johnny's side than on Amber's side. This is the topic of all of this is important for two reasons as it pertains to Unfound. Number one, for all of those disappearances that we've talked about involving couples, this is probably a lot of what their relationships look like. These toxic relationships. Johnny Depp, to me, seems like a guy with a lot of problems. And I'm hoping that he's gone over in his addictions, but we know people can relapse all the time. And, he just doesn't seem like the type of guy, even if he wasn't famous, that I would be friends with. He just seems like trouble. Maybe he's a very generous guy. I've seen these videos, him going to see children in hospitals and everything else. That's spectacular. All good. But I can certainly see how he might be the type of guy who would be in a toxic relationship. On the other hand, Amber Heard, she of course is not as well known. The only way I even know her is because she was in the Aquaman movie, which, is a fine movie. I thought she did a fine job, but you don't tune into those movies for the acting necessarily. But this could be one of those situations where, it's just two people who probably apart, just pretty average human beings. And then, but you put them together, and then he has big time issues. She probably has issues on herself, on her own, that got exposed, and you just create this huge mess. And that's kind of the way I have to admit. I look at a lot of these disappearances that involve couples. I'm under the belief that I'll just pick some names: Marion Hurley, Rosemary Rapp, Angela Green, Julie Early, all of those women. And then we know the men in their lives who we see to be the suspects. It's very possible that had that man and that not woman, had they never met, she never goes missing and he never causes a disappearance. And how do we know this? Because we know in so many of these situations where we suspect these men, we could even be very recently with Rhonda Smith, that for those people who suspect that her fiance Tommy did something to her, you're free to think that, you're free not to think that. But if you do think that he had something to do with her disappearance, you also have to recognize that he got married after that. That woman didn't disappear. And then he's been married to another woman for like 30 years, had children, have grandchildren. They're still married. And she's still around. She hasn't gone missing. So obviously, anytime somebody kills somebody else, causes somebody's disappearance, and it's not self-defense, it's horrible. That person is a bad person. But I think what it also shows that these people can be the worst human beings on the earth for a very small part of time and then move on from that and never cause the disappearance or kill anybody else for the rest of their lives. And it had not been guy A and woman B who got together, and then woman B goes missing. She meets some other guy, she probably never goes missing. If he meets some other woman, he never commits a crime, never causes a disappearance. It's just so crazy. Now, of course, we know, there are people out there who are going to kill people no matter what. The John Wayne Gacy's of the world. But in these types of relationships, these types of disappearances, this is kind of what I think of. Johnny, I realized he was, married before this, or I know he has kids with another woman. Maybe that relationship was toxic too, but it's very possible that after he got divorced to his wife, who has his kids, that he meets some other woman and they have this fantastic relationship, and they continue to have this fantastic relationship to this day. Likewise with Amber Heard. If she never meets Johnny Depp, she meets some other guy and never has a problem with him, and they get along fantastically. But Johnny, Amber put together, one of the worst couples ever. So I know everybody was watching the trial because of the people involved, Johnny Depp being very well known, all of the allegations, all the craziness, all the weird stories, wild stories, and everything else. Me, I'm watching it, at least trying to learn a little bit about it because I'm in the disappearance business. And I think I can learn something about these types of relationships and then, take what I learn and apply it to those types of disappearance that we cover regarding couples. So let me see what some of these people are saying. Shree was awarded $15 million, but there's a cap on some of that. He owes her $2 million, so all the math done. She owes $8 million. Thank you for doing the math for me, Shree, since I was a business major. Irita gets $10 million. Now, Betty, I do not have a law degree, but I can tell you that I would not want her representing me as an abused woman who spoke out for the rest of us. Okay. Christy, JD, and Amber were like gasoline in a match. That's true. Betty, and for the record, I've never been a Johnny Depp fan, but I am glad he spoke up for men in domestic violence. Thank you, Coffee. I think you're right. It's just a lethal combination, as somebody said there, gasoline in a match, chemistries that don't mix. Cherie says, never seen one pirate movie. Did all the evidence, though. Did see all of the evidence. Abusing drugs, so much easier to forgive than abusing people, gender and privilege. No, he waited until he was in his 50s to start raping women. Goes against everything we all know about true crime. Okay, Cherie, thank you. The other reason I was watching it, though, besides that, like I said, there was two reasons. Number two is the topic of defamation. And like I said, my perception is a lot of people in the law business believe that what went on here did not reach the level of defamation. And this is on my mind because I'm always thinking about this because of what we do on Unfound. Most of the time, we name names. Most of the time, a lot of people don't come out of the interviews looking or sounding or appearing very good. And so defamation is always on my mind. Of course, we want to avoid that. We want to get as much information out there. But on the other hand, you have to be very, very careful. This is one of the reasons, as I've said many times, this is one of the reasons I don't do theorizing on the interviews or in the episodes anymore regarding like, well, if John Smith killed Jane Doe, then what? Can't do that. That is trouble. It's also one of the reasons that I don't ask guests anymore what they think happened to their missing loved one. Once again, then you're going to start going into theoretical territory and murder and crime and kill and all those bad words that I think could get very close to definite defamation issues. So that's why when I do the summary, I just use my own words and simply say, the family of Jane Doe believes foul play was the cause of her disappearance. I keep it just like that. And that's as much as we talk about it on any episode. And I've never been accused of defaming. Well, I have been accused, but it hasn't gone anywhere. I've gotten some ugly emails regarding that. Back in November of 2019, I actually went to speak to a local lawyer here who is a specialist in defamation lawsuits and sexual harassment lawsuits, things like that. I went and spoke to him. I paid for an hour of his time to present what I do and any legal complications that I get into. And the interesting fact is he won his own personal defamation case at one point some years ago. So he knows somebody had said something about him that cost him his job, and he took that person to court and won. So he knows all about it firsthand. So we had a good talk about that. I've not talked to him since, but we had a good talk about that. So we just have to remember, at least in the United States, I can't speak for Canada or Australia or France or England, or you just have to remember in the United States that our defamation laws aren't quite as strong as in other countries. You have to go, and I think this is the reason that the people in the law profession really doubted whether defamation actually occurred in this case and why they think that the jury got it wrong. Because it's a high hurdle to jump to get to defamation, because a lot of things have to come together, because we have freedom of speech in the United States. You have to remember something. Nothing against our friends in Australia. Nothing against our listeners and viewers in Canada or in France or anywhere else. But you don't have free speech rights like we do in the United States. You don't. Go live in Canada for a little while and see what pops up in Canada that would never happen in the United States. For defamation in the United States, guess what? It's okay to lie about people in the United States. You can do that. That is protected speech. The issue, though, is the person who says that he or she has been affected has to show that he or she has been affected. It has cost that person something. That person said something that's a lie about me, and it hurt me in some tangible way. It has to be more than feelings. It has to be, I lost my job. I had to get divorced. All sorts of things. I didn't get a promotion. I got demoted. I had to leave the military. Things like that. So it can't just be a lie. It has to show something that cost the person something tangible. Like I said, more than just hurt feelings. In addition to that though, and this is if you watched the decision today, something else that has to be part of it is there has to be malice. And meaning the lies had to have been done in a way that was in an attacking fashion, and it was done on purpose so as to hurt somebody. It wasn't just two people talking about coffee, throwing BS around. Oh yeah, Johnny Depp, if I go and, to the local cafe, like I've been talking about, and I start talking to somebody about Johnny Depp, and I say, oh yeah, Johnny Depp's a rapist. Just throwing words out that is certainly different than going after him, wanting to cause damage to him, actual hate. And I'm perfectly fine with Johnny Depp. I like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He does some good interviews. I know he's a generous guy. I've seen he goes to children's hospitals. I love, Donnie Brasco and a bunch of other things that he's done. Obviously, though, he has problems. But so there's a lot that goes into defamation, a lot of hurdles that have to be jumped. We also have to remember in this big article in which Amber got in trouble for it, now we know she didn't even write it, but he is never mentioned. And even though in so many words he's mentioned, that would be like at Unfound if we were talking about some suspect, but we never mentioned his name and there would be no way to identify who he is, but then that person still filed a defamation claim against me. Everybody would think it was crazy. So, Mariposa says the law was on Amber's side, but public opinion was very much not. Sweet Gator said, I thought he wouldn't win because she never named him. Donna, Johnny lost major movie roles. So that was certainly his defense, Donna, but is it not possible that he might have lost those roles for other reasons? Is it not possible that he might not have, I know what the executive said and all of this, but, just don't know. Obviously, the jury was convinced of that. And I think the problem is that I think just in the general public that we don't like when people are lied about. We don't like people lying about ourselves. And, and unfortunately, all of us maybe, or one time or another, might have slandered somebody else just because we were ticked off. But in general, we don't like people lying about others, even though we might have done it ourselves. The problem is that lying is not defamation. But I'm not sure that the public sees it that way. And so you could say maybe a little bit that there might have been a little bit of jury nullification going on. They ignored the law and did what they did just because it's against their sense of fair play, which isn't the law. And we have to remember that. So once again, just the way I look at it, Shri says the law wasn't on Amber's side as seen in the verdict. It's the old you can't scream fire rule. You can't scream rape either. Defamation of character. She wrote the original article to the ACLU and used his name, but they edited it on her behalf. Shri said that would have made a better defense. Johnny lost roles on his own behalf. Sweet Gator, do you think her lawyers did a bad job? Sweet Gator, I didn't watch it enough to know. Shri probably would be better at saying that. I didn't watch it. All I saw was reaction to it. And I think the perception was that her lawyers were not very good. But I don't know. So defamation was on my mind too. And in fact, once again, both topics, toxic relationships and defamation, fall right into the unfound world. And so I was paying very close attention to both. Like I said, I've never been served papers. I have to admit that when I create the interview outlines that we use for every interview that has ever been done on Unfound, I always go through it very carefully to make sure that we are sticking to, we're trying to play it as fair as we can. And in fact, I would admit that maybe a few times, what comes to me recently was the interview I did for the Rhonda Smith disappearance, in which there's a moment in there where her cousin stated that, Rhonda's mother showed up at the house and Tom's father was there with a backhoe. And Rhonda's mother said, well, as soon as she got there, the father left with his backhoe and the mother was very suspicious of that. You can go back and listen to that. It was like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was very close to that. And of course that sounds suspicious, but what do I say right in that same section? And what did I say? To once again kind of balance everything out, I said, well, he could have just been leaving because it was his time to leave, right? He could have been leaving because he maybe just thought it was awkward that he was there, and Rhonda's mother maybe wanted to talk to Tom. Maybe something else came up. We really don't know, do we? No. So the guest, as much as I, of course, loved having Rhonda's cousin as a guest, she did a great job, did a great interview. But once in a while, a guest will say something that is, a little dramatic. And what I always try to do is present other possibilities. It's a fact. I'm willing to accept the fact that when Rhonda's mother showed up, that Tom's father left. I'm totally willing to believe that. But what motivation do you attach to that? She, of course, attached a very suspicious motivation to it, whereas there are many reasons that he could have left that had nothing to do with Rhonda's disappearance. So anytime that kind of thing comes up in an interview, I try to present the other side. And I really, really do try to be fair, even though I realize a lot of times the way we present the facts, somebody ends up not looking too good. But as that lawyer told me 2.5 years ago, the perfect defense to defamation is the truth. And as I've told many guests, if you lie, then we have everything to worry about. If you don't lie, we don't have anything to worry about. So, and like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that every guest on every episode has told the 100% truth. There's just no way to check every single thing that every person has said. And so because of that, I really, really, really do try to provide balanced coverage, balanced interviews. We don't go after people on Unfound. We don't go after suspects, even when they tell crazy stories like Jeff Green did. Even so, we don't do that. So defamation, big deal. Always going to be a topic here at Unfound as long as the podcast exists. I want to avoid that. But I think that we've played it pretty fair. I think no matter who the suspects or suspect or whatever was going on, it doesn't matter if it was a fine, upstanding person who is suspected of a disappearance or it's somebody with a long criminal record. We treat them all the same. I'd like to think that. Betty says her lawyers didn't have much to work with except a bunch of lies, and Cherie agrees with that. Okay. One more thing. I just want to talk about this very quickly. It's a very divisive topic, but it does have to do with crime. And that is the shooting. And we even had another shooting at a hospital in, what was it, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or Tulsa, Oklahoma today. But what happened at this school in Texas and everything that is coming out of it, a lot of different stories. You can't even believe what the police have said. It does seem, at least at this point, on June 1st of 2022, that the police force dithered around for a long time while that shooter was in that classroom with those children. And they waited however long for the SWAT team to show up, and they're standing out there. The only thing holding them back was one door, and they didn't do anything. It looks horrible. It looks horrible. It really looks bad for the police. The problem is that would have been, what maybe a different situation. What if they had gone in and he's in there? There are still a lot of alive children in that classroom and bullets are flying all over the place. And we find out after the fact that, 4 children were killed by police bullets and not by the bullets of this killer. And I'm sure that was something that was going through the police officers' heads. I'm sure that was going through the heads of the head of the person who was in charge, who, like I said, now doesn't want to talk to the reporters or anybody. But you just never know what you're going to do in a situation like that until it's presented to you. It's Oklahoma. Thank you, Betty. We might look at something like September 11th, where it seems that most of those passengers on those jets kind of just sat back, and allowed the terrorists to pilot the planes. And it seems, at least to our knowledge, that, only one of the flights are when people maybe, once again, the other people maybe didn't know that, that they were on a suicide trip. Maybe the advantage that last plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, the advantage that those passengers had is that they had found out by using those phones on the planes that this was a terrorist attack. Those other planes had been crashed into the Wall Street Journal, the World Trade Center, and the Pentagon, and probably that was what was going to happen with this plane due. It was going to crash into some building. A lot of additional people were going to be killed, and so those passengers, of course, decided to do something. They got into the cockpit. Unfortunately, in the fight, the plane got out of control and crashed, and everyone was killed. But without that knowledge of what happened to those other planes, then maybe those people might have sat back and just thought, oh, this plane is, going to land somewhere and they're going to use us as hostages so they can get a lot of money and then, fly to, I don't know, some country that doesn't have an extradition agreement with the United States. Because that was the history of hijacking to that point. I mean, if you start looking at American history, there have been a lot of hijackers, a lot of flights in the United States, more than you'd probably ever realize. And even with American planes in other countries, American, way back TWA, Pan Am, those planes were hijacked by terrorists and they were landed. Rarely were they crashed or exploded or anything like that. So this was something new on September 11th, and that's probably why it worked. So with this, and thank you, Ferry. I agree we're all presumed innocent until one key Oklahoma, but at least they would have tried. They didn't even try. That's true, Ferry. I'm not arguing with you. Betty, just a sad and horrible situation for all involved. They didn't even try. I get it. But in that moment, you're a police officer and you want to go in, but then you have to rationalize, as soon as we open up the door, we know that there are going to be a bunch of children in there, and I have to reconcile with myself that I might kill a child too in the process of trying to kill the killer. And whereas the other choice is, maybe if we don't provoke him anymore, maybe he's run out of ammunition. Maybe this has happened. Maybe that happened. He can't kill any more children, and so we're going to wait him out. Now, now we know from a tactical point of view that the most accepted correct decision in those situations is to storm in. It's not to wait around. But every circumstance has its nuances. And also, as you know, I don't like people telling me my business, so I try not to tell other people their business. And I can't imagine the situation that they were in. Now, there is another wrinkle to all of this that has just come out today. A big issue has been, why did he go to that school? Why did he pick that school? We've heard the stories about how he got bullied. He was in that school district. Well, it turns out that his grandmother, who he shot before he went and did that day, she was on the payroll at that school. That's just something that's come out today. So maybe there's some sort of motivation in that. Either, I'll give you my own idea on this. Is that, I'm not convinced. I've convinced myself that this was supposed to be a suicide by cop, but the guy wasn't successful at doing it. We have to remember, he did not creep into the school, unlike Columbine or many of these other school shootings where kid goes to school, walks into the school, has a gun under his jacket, in his book bag or backpack or whatever else, pulls it out and starts shooting. This kid crashed his truck right out in front of the school. This was not a surprise. And it seems that he crashed his truck, granted, right near where the guard who was supposed to be at the school, this guard wasn't on campus. I don't know where he or she was, but he did this right where that guard would usually be. And so to me, I start looking at those facts and I start saying, was this a situation where it was some sort of suicide by cop? I'm going to go to the school. I know a cop's there. I'm going to crash this truck out in front. I'm going to get out with a gun. He's going to be there, or she is going to be there, and we're going to get in a gunfight. That person will shoot me. I'll be dead. You can watch all the suicide by cop videos that are on YouTube. There's thousands of them. Thousands of them. People getting into car wrecks, waving a gun around, won't put the gun down, and the person does the exact last thing that you shoot, pointed at cops, and they have no choice to shoot. That's what we call suicide by cop. So I start thinking, was this a situation where this kid thought that this would be a suicide by cop, but then the cop's not there, and he goes, well, there's nobody shooting at me. I guess that I'm going to have to go in and do something about it so people will shoot me. And what better way to do that is to go into the school and start shooting kids. It's something that occurs to me. We just have to understand. I realize that bullying and all of that has become a big topic in the 21st century. But it's certainly not new. I can remember bullying going back to my days in high school. And in fact, I will tell you that for a small time when I was like in 7th grade, I got on the wrong side of a senior who hounded me for a couple weeks, and he was bullying me until I just figured out that, nothing, really was going to happen. So I was in that spot at least once in my life. We have to think back to the 1970s. We have to remember that the movie Carrie, written by Stephen King, is technically a movie about bullying. So that goes back to the 1970s. And I'm sure he wrote that being inspired by whatever he experienced or whatever he saw. So bullying and picking on kids is not new. And not even school shootings are that new. But as I've talked about with a friend of mine, having looked at the statistics, it does seem that something changed after Columbine. Up until that point, if you were to go, for example, to Wikipedia and look at all the school shootings in the United States, many of them, all with guns. Of course, it's a shooting, but whether it's a pistol or rifle or whatever, but usually the death toll was like 1 or 2 or 3. And then Columbine came out. It was a huge number. And it seems since then that we haven't been able to put that genie back in the bottle. Once that happened, it has seemed since then we had Virginia Tech. We have all these, Paducah, Kentucky, and all of this stuff. And it just seems like Columbine changed something. Like it suddenly made it It put that in people, people who might think about doing this, it put it in their mind that, oh yeah, I can do that. But you look at the statistics, there's a definite difference pre-Columbine, post-Columbine. Very sad. Very sad. Donna, nowadays teachers have to be psychologists. The open door was crazy too. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to end up being true or not, Ferry. That was certainly a hot topic at start, but I don't know if that's true. I think you're right about the cops not going in, Ed. They probably didn't want to hurt a child. Since we weren't there, it's our place to judge the police, but would have been nice if they would have done something sooner. I also remember reading about suicide by cop in The Outsiders in the 6th grade, which is yeah, that's right. So these things aren't new. Sandy Hook, thank you, Donna. These things aren't new. You're not saying we accept them or anything else, but my instinct is that it goes a lot deeper than bullying or guns or anything like that. As I continue to say, we have a huge mental health issue in this country that everybody wants to deny. Huge. We have a huge suicide problem. We have a huge addiction problem. I believe all of it contributes way more to, the violence we see, whether it's at a supermarket or a school and everything, than guns, than bullying, than anything else. Even though, even today in 2022, the United States still has less murder per capita than it did when I was born in 1970. The United States, relative-wise, is a much safer place than it was in 1970. It's not even close, despite our perception to the contrary. Just remember that. As much as we get caught up in all this violence, it was a much more dangerous place on August 1st, 1970, when I was born. So there you go. I think there's something in their minds that makes them go ballistic and kill people. Yeah, Charlotte. Charlotte, I could talk about this topic probably for hours. I've had a long time to think about it. But it goes deeper than guns and bullying and things like that. We just have a lot of problems that we are ignoring in the United States that has everything to do with ourselves. Not with other people, not with inanimate objects like guns or knives or tasers or anything else, or cars that, people driving cars and run into a group of people and kill them. It's way deeper than any of that. And I'll just speak for my own country. I'm not going to get into other countries. I will just speak for my own. We have issues in the United States that hugely contribute to this. Huge, Benny. All right, let's move on to this Friday's disappearance, the disappearance of Patty Watkins. And I've been asked this a lot of times over the last few years. Ed, do you believe that any of the disappearances you've covered have been caused by a serial killer? I've had a couple answers to that. Well, I'm surely going to have a solid answer to that now. And the answer is going to be yes, because this Friday, the disappearance of Mary Watkins from Modesto, California on May 17th, 1979. And the episode is called The Con Man, Part 1. Now, the reason it's called that, Part 1, is because over the course of the summer, I hope to interview other family members of other women, who have been killed by the same guy. However, these are still disappearances. Mary Watkins is still missing. But there's a guy, his name is James Tolliver, who surely caused his disappearance and caused the disappearances of at least 3 other women, including his own wife, and murdered another woman whose body was found. And so I've already spoken to the daughter and son of another of James Tolliver's victims. Hopefully they will be on the podcast within the next month or so. And when that happens, that will be The Con Man Part 2, and then Part 3, however many guests that we can get to come on Unfound and talk about what happened. But Mary Watkins was a single woman, had a lot of great things going for her after her divorce, And she ran into this guy, James Tolliver, who had a particular modus operandi where he would convince women to give him cash and promising them that they could run off and get married, and then he would kill them. And unfortunately, Mary Watkins is surely dead, but it's a disappearance because her remains have not been found yet. Her son, Ed, yeah, really, his Ed's name is Ed. I think that's the first Ed ever interviewed for Unfound. Her son, Ed Watkins, is the guest. So Friday, Patty Watkins, or Mary Watkins. Why do I have Patty? Mary Watkins, who disappeared from Modesto, California, May 17th, 1979. Her son, Ed Watkins, is the guest. It's called The Con Man Part 1. And so we surely get into our first serial killer, although you could say that Brandy Myers disappeared due to a serial killer. Debbie Lowe probably disappeared due to a serial killer, and might even say Brenda Condon disappeared due to a serial killer. But this is surely going to be the most solid coverage of a serial killer's crime spree that we've ever done on Unfound. It's going to happen this summer. So Con Man 1, Con Man Part 1, and then Part 2, Part 3, however long we can go. But it won't be like next week. Part 2 will not be next week. So what do we do tonight? Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, join, share. Talked about the unfortunate happening at my local disc golf course. Found some nice late night cafes. Memorial Day, Top Gun Maverick, and nobody has answered whether they saw it or not. The Villarreal poll, the live show, UK production company, drink sponsorship, Kelly Bruce wedding, the newsletter, Unfound Now, Dan Markel, the Johnny Depp trial, the Uvalde school shooting, and then finally this coming Friday's disappearance, the disappearance of Mary Watkins. That's all I got. Keep your head on a swivel. Remember, I'm coming back immediately on Monday, where this will become an audio show as well. Thank you for all the comments tonight. And it's time for me to do my Unfound update for today. Good night.